Hey, Ray, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com with another lesson in Python. And today we're going to be talking about objects. So, an object-oriented programming, a programming paradigm, the idea is that generally everything gets broken down into the objects. One of the easiest ways to think about it is like a role-playing game. So, if you ever played like an RPG, imagine each character. Each character has its own sets of stats, HP, MP, strength, defense, etc. And then each character has their own attacks and all these different things. But can you imagine having to define all those variables and declare all those variables every time you want to create an individual character? No. So what you do is you create a blueprint for characters. So in this case, I created a blueprint for dog, and each blueprint is called a class. And then what you do is you take that blueprint, that class, and then you can create instances of that class that have their own individual life. So in this situation, we created a class called dog. I'm defining a dog. Okay, now when you create a class in any programming language, what happens is that there has to be a function. Something has to happen the minute you make each individual instance. So each time I create a new dog, something kind of has to set it up. That's called the constructor function. So the first thing you have to do when you create your new dog is to define the constructor. So you're going to define a function, and the function is going to be called init. So this is fixed. It knows that whatever function you call init is the constructor function. It always has to take, for Python, it always has to take the parameter of self. This is just so that way it knows to use the self keyword, and then after that you can name any other parameters you need. So in this case, usually what your constructor function does, it just sets your initial values. So you generally, anything that you want to kind of set individually, you kind of put it as a parameter, and then what happens is that that's a parameter and you need to actually assign it to the item. So self is a keyword that represents that individual item, that individual instance. So in this case, each individual dog. So we're just saying, hey, that thing that you passed in as a name, as a parameter name, assign it to the dog's name, self.name. The dog's breed, self.breed, make that whatever the call to create this dog put as the breed. So that's what that is doing. And that happens the minute you create the dog. So you never actually have to call this function. You'll never call init. It automatically runs the minute that you create the object. So for example, here we created Sparky. And Sparky, this variable Sparky is going to equal a dog item. So we're creating a new dog. And I'm passing along the parameters of Sparky and Yellow Lab. So it's going to take so it always takes the first one is going to be name, because self you don't take any parameters for self, it's just a thing. So Sparky is the name, Yellow Lab is the breed. And then it runs this code and it's going to assign Sparky to to its own internal name variable, and it's going to assign breed to its own internal breed variable. And then I can access that variable on that specific version of this specific dog, the Sparky dog, by doing sparky.name. So I'm going to print sparky.name, and you can see it prints Sparky to the console. I'm going to create another dog called Spot. Spot is a terrier. So now if I print spot.name, it prints Spot's name. Okay, and then you can also not only give them variables, but you can also give them functions. So in this case, I also define one function for dog, bark. The dog barks. So I can be like Sparky barks. And then Spot barks. Okay, and then if we run it, boop, boop, boop. What did I do wrong there? Line 14, take 0 positional arguments. The one was given. Did I give an argument? I don't remember giving an argument. I don't see it. Sparky.bark. 14. A side note, even the function, the methods, all the functions, and this is for a Python thing, you always have to at least put self as a parameter. So that means if it's a function that takes no parameters, I still got to at least put self for it to run. So now it should work. There it goes. Bow wow, bow wow. Because what you're not seeing is that for any object that you create, apparently Python is automatically passing this initial self parameter. So even though you're not defining it, so when I look at my function call here, I assign no parameters, and it gave me this error saying, hey, it passed the parameter but your function wasn't expecting one, is because there's this initial parameter that's being put in by Python. So you got to make sure that's self. So you got to make sure you have that self parameter in any of your class's functions. So just a little side point, so you can understand what's going on there. So Sparky barks, bow wow, and you can do this. You can create, like, for example, always a fun exercise. You should do this, is create like a class for like a fighter, and give it the ability to fight, defend itself, create all these functions that would simulate a fight. And if you actually go to my solo learn page, there is an example of me doing this in Python if you want to see that. um, and then you can actually create as many instances of the fighters and have them fight each other, which is always it's a fun project. It really gives you an appreciation for being able to instantiate classes. um, that's what a class is. So basically, if you have a program, and another good challenge to do with a class is to create a class for an individual card that has like a number and a suit. So, a jack of spades, a 10 of hearts, and then instantiate, come up with another object called a deck for like the deck of cards, and then have a method or a function that's part of the deck that creates a bunch of card objects to actually create a deck of cards, and then you can give it other functions to shuffle those cards, all that, and actually create a functioning deck using objects. That's a great way to get practice in creating objects. So there's a couple of challenges that you should try out. Add them to, if you have a REPL account like this, do it on a REPL. If you have a solo learn or any kind of coding playground account, uh, give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. But that's what a class is. You can create as many different objects as you want, and they can have all the properties, which are the variables, and all the methods, which are the functions built into the class that you want. Cool. So I'll see you guys next time. This is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com.